Imagine this. Every time you ask AI a simple question, you're using enough clean drinking water to fill a small glass. Research on models the size of GPT-3 shows that 10 to 50 queries can require about 500 millilitres of water, a resource that many families rely on for daily life. This figure includes water used not just for cooling, but also for generating the electricity these systems need. Why does it have to be drinking quality water? Data centers use liquid cooling systems that demand clean water to prevent corrosion and bacterial growth. So, every prompt you send to an AI draws on the same fresh water that sustains communities. Today we'll uncover how the tech behind every query draws on resources that many communities need for survival. The numbers may seem small at first, but as we look closer, the true scale begins to emerge. Now, before I get deep into this topic, I was just reading an article today that seems just as insane. So this links to the water story, so bear with me. Microsoft's latest green initiative involves paying Volta Deep $1.7 billion to collect manure, sewage, and agricultural waste, turn it into a thick slurry, and pump it 5,000 feet underground. The goal? Stop organic waste from decomposing in landfills and releasing CO2. But here's the real question. Instead of using manure to fertilize crops, they're burying it. Farmers have used natural waste as fertilizer for centuries. Why is Microsoft buying it up just to inject it underground? Does this mean less nutrient-rich soil for food production, leading to more synthetic fertilizers, which have their own carbon footprint? Who benefits more here, the planet or Microsoft's PR team? Was contaminating the groundwater part of the plan? Pumping millions of tons of sludge deep underground sounds like a fracking-style disaster waiting to happen. E. coli in the water table. If this waste leaks, like many injection projects do, will nearby communities end up with toxic drinking water? Where's the long-term safety data? Or is Microsoft just crossing its fingers and hoping nothing goes wrong? Worse than it appears. Microsoft's data centers already drain more groundwater for cooling than entire towns. Now, they're replacing what's left of the clean water supply with sludge. Is this their idea of sustainability? Because it sounds more like ecological sabotage. A fitting name for their next upgrade, MS Windows Sludge. At this rate, Microsoft's real legacy won't be Windows or AI, it'll be poisoned aquifers and a $1.7 billion waste burial scheme that backfires spectacularly. The bigger problem, Microsoft's carbon offsets are a shell game. They keep paying others to hide emissions instead of actually reducing them. Their AI and data centers guzzle energy and water, yet they're acting like burying manure fixes everything. Where's the accountability? Why won't they disclose the real costs and risks? The bottom line, this isn't climate action, it's corporate greenwashing at its worst. If Microsoft really cared about the environment, they'd slash AI's insane energy demands. Invest in true renewables, not just waste injections, stop draining water supplies and risking groundwater contamination. Until then, this deal is just another dirty trick, one that might leave us all with more than just carbon to worry about. Okay, anyway, I got that off my chest. Now back to the other problem. Why your government prioritizes AI over your family's survival. Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, once claimed that each ChatGPT query uses just 1/15 of a teaspoon of water, a figure that seems trivial. But this claim lacks essential detail, and independent researchers have arrived at a much different estimate. Studies on medium-sized language models like GPT-3 suggest that every 10 to 50 prompts can require about half a litre of water. This total includes not only the water needed to cool the hardware, but also the water used in generating the electricity that powers these computations. Multiply that by the billions of queries sent to AI systems each day, and the numbers quickly become significant. Even the smallest interactions, asking for a recipe, tweaking an email, or solving a math problem, draw from this shared supply. Over time, those tiny drops accumulate into a much larger demand. Yet, when the BBC pressed OpenAI for more details about Altman's calculation, the company declined to provide supporting data, leaving the public in the dark about the true environmental cost. So, if you're tired of big tech pretending to go green while wasting resources, smash that like button and subscribe for more hard truths. This lack of transparency only deepens the uncertainty. Without clear information, it's hard to gauge the real impact of AI's water use, or to know whether tech companies are understating the problem. What we do know is that the difference between the teaspoon estimate and the half-litre figure isn't just a rounding error. It points to a much bigger question about the scale of AI's resource consumption, especially as models become more powerful and their use becomes woven into daily life. To grasp the magnitude, consider this. A recent study projects that by 2027, global AI demand could account for up to 6.6 billion cubic meters of water withdrawal. That's a staggering amount, especially as AI adoption accelerates and new models like Gemini and Claude enter the scene. Every generated image, every chatbot conversation, and every automated task taps into the same freshwater reserves that communities rely on. Unlike household water use, which can be reduced or scheduled, data centers run around the clock. They process queries, retrain models, and handle a constant stream of requests, each one requiring cooling, and each cooling cycle drawing on clean water. So if every image and every chat adds up, what happens when these demands collide with drought-stricken regions? At the core of AI's growing resource needs are data centers, vast buildings packed with powerful chips that generate so much heat, they risk permanent damage without constant cooling. To keep these machines running, companies have moved from traditional air cooling to liquid cooling systems, which are far more effective at managing the intense heat. In these systems, a coolant flows across the chips, absorbing their heat. That heated coolant is then chilled by water before it cycles back to repeat the process. But there's a catch. Up to 80% of the water used to cool these systems can evaporate during each cycle, according to the BBC. This means data centers must constantly replenish their water supply, creating a relentless demand that never really stops. And it isn't just any water. These systems require water that's as clean as what comes out of your tap. Only drinking quality water can prevent corrosion, mineral buildup, and bacterial growth inside the pipes, ensuring the equipment runs safely and reliably. This means that the same water flowing into homes, farms, and hospitals is also being diverted into cooling the world's most advanced computers. What happens when data centers draw from the same rivers and lakes our neighbours depend on? The numbers can be staggering. In one campus system, evaporative losses over a single summer match the volume of 8 Olympic swimming pools. That's just one facility. Multiply that by thousands of data centers worldwide, and the scale of water use becomes hard to ignore. Treating water to this high standard takes additional energy and resources, adding another layer to AI's environmental footprint. And as AI models become more complex and energy intensive, the cooling demands only grow. These data centers run around the clock. Whether it's the middle of the night or the height of a heat wave, water is always flowing through the pipes to keep the servers from overheating. While some companies are experimenting with recycled water or alternative coolants, most large-scale AI operations still depend on fresh, treated supplies. Often, data centers are built where electricity is cheap, not where water is abundant, creating a direct competition for resources with local communities, especially in areas already facing water shortages. So, the next time you get an instant answer from an AI, remember the hidden journey that response takes. Before it reaches your screen, it's already drawn on a resource that many people can't take for granted. But running AI is only half the story. What about the water it takes to teach these systems in the first place? The true environmental toll of AI comes sharply into focus when we look at the process of training these massive models. Training an AI system like GPT-3 is not a simple feat. It's a resource-intensive operation that runs around the clock for weeks or even months. According to a 2022 study, training GPT-3 consumed at least 1,300 megawatt hours of electricity, enough to power 130 average US homes for an entire year. This staggering energy requirement is just the starting point for understanding the hidden costs behind every AI breakthrough. With each new model, these demands only grow. Estimates place the financial cost of training GPT-4 at over $100 million, reflecting the immense investments in hardware, computational power, and energy. Only the largest corporations or governments can afford this scale, concentrating the power to shape advanced AI in a handful of hands. While text-based tasks are relatively modest in energy use, just a few watt-hours for 1,000 prompts, image generation is far more energy intensive. For context, generating a single AI image can consume nearly as much electricity as charging a smartphone, according to recent research from Hugging Face and Carnegie Mellon. This difference in energy use translates directly into a difference in water consumption, both through direct cooling and through the water required by power plants. Data centers, where these models are trained, already account for about 1 to 2% of global electricity use, comparable to the entire United Kingdom. The electricity powering these centers often comes from plants that require water to generate steam and cool their machinery, adding a significant but often overlooked water footprint. As AI models become more complex, the demand for both electricity and water continues to climb. During model training, data centers run at full tilt, generating relentless heat and requiring continuous cooling. This process can pull millions of gallons from local water supplies, sometimes in regions already facing drought or water restrictions. Location choices for these data centers often prioritize cheap electricity over water availability. As a result, some communities bear a disproportionate share of the burden, with local water supplies diverted to support the relentless pace of AI development. The more advanced these models become, the more water and energy they require, sometimes at the expense of nearby families and farms. The scale of these operations raises a pressing question. As these training furnaces blaze day and night, who bears the true cost of this knowledge? As AI's reach grows, the struggle over water is moving from the background to the center of public debate. This is the reality of the water wars, AI versus humanity. The world's biggest tech companies now consume water on a scale that rivals entire cities. Microsoft's water use jumped 34% to 1.7 billion gallons, while Google hit 5.6 billion, numbers that outpace their water-positive pledges and signal a trend that's accelerating with every new AI breakthrough. These increases aren't happening in isolation. They're driven by the massive computing power needed to run and cool AI models, which draw millions of litres from local supplies. Projections show that by 2027, AI-driven demand could withdraw up to 6.6 billion cubic metres of water each year, roughly equal to the annual water use of Washington State. This isn't just a distant statistic. For many communities, the effects are already being felt. In Uruguay, where drought left reservoirs dangerously low, Google's plan to build a data centre sparked protests. Residents voiced their frustration. They're taking water that should go to farmers. The tension is clear. While servers remain cool and operational, local families and farms face growing uncertainty about their own water security. Tech companies have responded with promises to replenish more water than they use, but the numbers tell a different story. Despite pledges to become water positive, both Microsoft and Google report rising consumption, and their conservation efforts lag behind the pace of their expansion. Cooling AI systems demand such large volumes that even ambitious restoration projects can't keep up. Most data centers still rely on freshwater sources, and their siting decisions often prioritize cheap electricity over local water abundance, putting extra pressure on regions already stretched thin. The issue is compounded by the indirect water use of power plants that supply these data centers. Nuclear and coal plants require vast amounts of water for steam and cooling, further amplifying AI's total water footprint. When data centers cluster in a single region, they draw from local rivers and aquifers twice, once for direct cooling and again for the electricity that keeps their servers running.